Now, before I get going here, I just want to start off by saying this is not one of those outrageous hot take videos that you've seen a billion times over. I want to actually go step by step through the Hurry Up Tomorrow rollout, even go as far back as the After Hours and Dawn FM rollouts, which feels like forever ago, and really have a thorough discussion about whether or not this has been the Weeknd's worst rollout of the After Hours trilogy. Let's get right into it. And to start off the rollout, the Weeknd started off with these vignettes, these little snippets of almost like Renaissance painting scenes playing out before our eyes. New music, some of which we've heard before, some of which we haven't. It felt very grand. I think that's the word that I'd use to describe this whole era so far. It's just this feeling of finality to everything that the Weeknd's entire discography has been leading up to this. And not gonna lie to you, this took me from 0 to 100 very quickly. Got a good case of the goosies right after that. And after those videos, we then got the Sao Paulo performance. As you can see from my t-shirt, a lot of hype for it. I don't know about you, but for me, the main thing that I use to kind of scale how good an artist is at their craft is intention. How deep do they go into their art? Not necessarily in a way that's like, oh, look how smart I am, but just in a way that you can tell like, okay, these were creative decisions that were genuinely made, that someone, whether it was Abel or someone else, took the time to really think of, right? The location of the performance was being held in a very specific area. The robe he was wearing is not just any robe, it actually calls back to his Ethiopian heritage. And now going into the actual performance itself, man, this was one of the most iconic performances of the Weeknd's career to me, not just because of the notes that were hit and the songs that were sung, but because of the moment. The main word I'd use for this performance is liberating, freeing. Like you could tell there was a weight that the Weeknd had been carrying, or at this point, if you even want to call him the Weeknd anymore, Abel Tesfaye, he is almost like shedding skin right before our very eyes. And I think you could see that sort of emotion during certain parts of the performance. Like for me, the part that really gave me the chills was when he performs Too Late, and he changes the lyric. Instead of saying it's way too late to save my soul, he's saying it's not too late to save my soul. And the way he's walking through the valley of the shadow of death, the look on his face, like you can tell the emotion there was genuine and real. And not gonna lie, man, I got a little choked up. Going a little bit farther back, starting off with performing a song that has certain lyrics like, you know, the crowd screams my name, obviously calling back to certain lyrics from Dawn FM saying,
soon you'll be healed, forgiven, and refreshed, free from all trauma, pain, guilt, and shame. You may even forget your own name.
You know, that whole feeling of leaving behind the Weeknd and starting to introduce Abel Tesfaye into it. I think that was very timely. But then you go into this song that the streets are calling Wake Me Up. This song is so interstellarly groovy. People have said that it interpolates Thriller. I don't think it does. I think it's just so groovy and so timeless and so Quincy Jones-esque, rest in peace by the way, that people can't help but just compare it to the apex of that kind of 80s disco funk sound. I think this is just such a beautiful way to wake up out of the slumber that maybe he's been in since Trilogy, and you know that kind of haziness of that whole project, right? It's really cool to culminate it in a song called Wake Me Up. Like compare this version of the Weeknd that we see, you know, who's openly and affectionately yelling I love you, and smiling and tearing up and exposing his skin and the scars on his arm. Compare that to the Kissland and Beauty Behind the Madness era Weeknd, who, you know, was a good performer but was more so coming at it from a place of stoicism, right? And almost like portraying this sense of jadedness, which I found super, at the time, very relatable, you know, and I've grown since then, I've matured, and now I'm looking for something that activates me, that wakes me up. There you go. And that song is just so groovy and electrifying, you know, and I cannot wait to get that record. My theory real quick, I think we're gonna get that record the week before the album drops, you know, similar to After Hours. I just feel like it's gotta be the next single. A couple other highlights from the Sao Paulo performance. He performed Hardest to Love for the very first time, which is, if you ask me on any given day, I'll give you 13 different answers, but to me, that record is on average my go-to answer of what is my favorite song off After Hours besides After Hours, which is my take, is The Weeknd's best song, but I digest. He also performed Take Me Back to LA, which was just so crazy to hear, like a polished version, like not a version where he's just humming through the verses. Oh, that song is just gonna hit so different, and I'm so curious what the full version of that record is, you know? And then of course we get to Dancing in the Flames, which when he was performing it, I was like, oh my God, this song is euphoric as hell. This song is so nice and good. And I was just playing it on my TV speaker, so I couldn't really make out the lyrics, but just the tune of it, the way it almost has like a healing component to it. And that's an aspect of The Weeknd that I feel like has not gotten touched on too much, because, you know, the whole entire appeal of The Weeknd throughout the years is that he's sort of like if Michael Jackson was a fallen angel and embraced his dark side, you know, and you get songs where he's talking about trapping and doing all this more vulgar stuff. So that was his appeal. But to me, The Weeknd's voice has always had a bit of like a angelic component, you know. It's why he gets those Michael Jackson comparisons. And so Dancing in the Flame, it feels like a hug. And I'm not quite ready to get into the music video yet and it as a single, but just know that when I was listening to this record, I was like, this song is gonna do numbers, at least in this crib right here. It's gonna go double platinum. And according to my Spotify Wrapped, it has. A couple other notes: After Hours still hits. Going from Wake Me Up into After Hours, just like I remember I was just dancing all around. Which, by the way, if you want to go ahead and play a drinking game and get absolutely hammered, take a shot every time this man says Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo! Sao Paulo! Sao Paulo! And I think by far the funniest moment from that entire performance was supposedly during, I believe, How Do I Make You Love Me? He's like looking around, he's walking, and I like to think that someone potentially had flashed him, and so he kind of gets thrown off, and he does an R&B outstretched hand into a Shaolin bow. And I'm like, what a classy, that's the correct way to respond to a lady flashing you, especially a beautiful Brazilian lady. Like, that's the only way to respond. And lastly, I think, you know, in talking about intention before, the way that there's almost an arc throughout that Sao Paulo performance in terms of he starts off with Wake Me Up, and we see, you know, the background, which, by the way, the visuals were incredible, but the background of Abel being trapped in his own mind and the darkness and almost in the depths of hell. And I feel like that is supposed to represent, you know, where we started this whole trilogy at. But then you juxtapose that with how we end the whole thing, and it's The Weeknd reaching the pearly gates and looking up and almost being confused and wondering, like, where am I? You know, do I belong here? And I think that may be the central question of Hurry Up Tomorrow, is what exactly warrants The Weeknd to be able to enjoy a happily ever after, if that's what he ends up getting. I don't know if this is the video that I'm going to start talking about the ending. That'll maybe potentially be another video. I just enjoyed that arc and the story it told, and again, the intention behind it, and right in line with everything that I've been talking about in my whole video series talking about the rollout. So, but yeah, Sao Paulo, very happy with that performance. Gave me all the goosies, all the chills, and really kicked off this Hurry Up Tomorrow rollout with an absolute bang. Then a couple weeks later, we got Dancing in the Flames as the new single, as the lead single for this whole era. And I think there's something to be said about already kind of starting off this comparison, right? The first singles from each era is, you have After Hours, which the first single was Heartless. Dawn FM was Take My Breath. And now we got Dancing in the Flames. And I think if you line them all up together, there's something to be said about what they say about the era that, you know, we're leading up to. Heartless, which was definitely kind of the fall, the tragedy of the Weeknd character, you know, and Heartless kind of being a bit of the thrill of it, you know, the ride, the apex of what that arc was, you know, was coming straight off a heartbreak. Man, fuck everything. Like, let's go to Las Vegas with Metro Boomin, lick a frog, kiss a statue, drink excessively, you know, all this stuff, right? Then you get into Take My Breath, which I think was the song that perfectly encapsulates the atmosphere of that album, which is especially the first half of that album, this disco with a bunch of demons and ghouls, and the music video for it was super cool with him walking away from the sun. And you know, we don't know whether or not this is the same Weeknd from the After Hours trilogy. After all, he's just died in Until I Bleed Out. And then you get into Dancing in the Flames, which I think gets a bad rap for just how bright and upbeat it is, but I think if you look at it a little deeper, like not like fucking conspiracy theorist, new rock stars type thing, but if you just pay attention to the lyrics, you would see that there's a little bit more to it. Like, for example, how each verse is a bit of a love letter to the past albums in this After Hours trilogy. The first verse talks about racing home and flashing lights, obviously calling back to Blinding Lights and just the After Hours era as a whole. And the second verse, obviously starting off with The World Can't Heal, They Say on the Radio, calling back to how Dawn FM is a radio station being played in Purgatory, which is this kind of middle ground area, a place that you stay in order to go get better. And I totally understand someone in Purgatory being like, kind of getting the hope like wringed out of them like a towel. Then you fast forward to the bridge, I guess, which is he goes, everything's faded, which is something that we've gotten on a couple billboards in the lead up to Hurry Up Tomorrow, which I thought was going to be in a very, very much like a somber, sardonic tone, but it's actually said in a moment of pure bliss and almost happiness amongst all the destruction or the flames, right? And I think it's super cool that what seems like a tragedy could actually feel euphoric. And that's what I feel like is a good metaphor for what this whole era is that yes, it's the ending of the Weeknd. You'll be hard to find someone who appreciates the Weeknd more than me, but the way he's tackling it, and particularly this song, it's just so endearing, and you just want to root for the Weeknd on this journey. And that reflects in the music video. It's literally him driving, calling back to, you know, the Blinding Lights music video. There's even a segment where it kind of gets all slow-mo. It's like him indulging in the lifestyle, and now he's a little bit more aware. And granted, he gets into a car crash, but that's because I feel like the Weeknd character just doesn't do well with driving for some whatever reason. He's just always in car crashes. And then later on in the music video, he's actually walking towards the light, towards the dawn. I feel like this buys in so well to my theory as to, you know, what Dawn FM kind of represents in the Weeknd's discography, which is throughout the music videos, we've been seeing these little vignettes, these scenes of the Weeknd having one of his prior vices being kind of dangled in front of him like a carrot, whether it be Take My Breath with drugs and women that bring harm into his life. You know, Is There Someone Else, which is lust. Gasoline, which feels like this sort of like self-loathing type deal, that the older Weeknd looks at the younger self and the younger self looks at the older self, and they both are disappointed and hate each other. Or Out of Time is, you know, regret and shame again. And so he's being put in all of these situations that the Weeknd character would fail, and he's failing again and again and again. But this time in the Dancing in the Flames music video, he's getting so close to the light until unfortunately he gets reckless, gets into a car crash, and he gets so close to the light, and then, you know, obviously passes out and is taken into an ambulance, which I think is a great stinger for the, like, to kind of leave us hanging, a little cliffhanger. And this is where I feel like things start to get a little shaky, you know, because Dancing in the Flames, for what it's worth, again, if you line it up against the other three eras or other two eras, you know, I think it sets the tone really well, establishing that this has been an odyssey going through 3 albums, right? But then it got really quiet for some reason, which kind of started to kill the momentum a little bit. And then we got Timeless, which was a song I didn't mention, performed at the Sao Paulo performance featuring Playboi Carti, which, if y'all know Playboi Carti, it's tough to get that guy out of his house and in a studio. So it was a super big deal. And this record was really good, really solid. You know, I love whenever the Weeknd can get in his little rapping trap bag. And this was such a great little throwback to, you know, what a lot of people really enjoy about the Weeknd. The music video felt like a bit of a side quest. It had nothing really to do with the chronology of, you know, this whole After Hours trilogy story that we've been telling, which is fine. I never really thought of Timeless as an album record. You know, fast forward and this ends up on the album, then, you know, you can come here and comment that I'm wrong. But I thought it was kind of a side quest. Same thing with Sao Paulo, which we got on the week of Halloween, featuring Anita. Really great record, really atmospheric and such a different vibe, you know, again, paying homage to that Brazilian sound, Brazilian funk, and really great record. The music video really threw people off, and people were having conversations about it, like, oh man, this is the worst music video ever. But I thought it was just fun. People were hating on this music video for no reason other than it was different, it was unique, and yeah, it was weird, but dude, I lived through the Too Late music video. I watched that shit. Both of those music videos were released around Halloween, so I'm totally cool with a weird music video, especially around that time. You want that spooky imagery, you know? Yeah, it was silly. Yeah, it was whatever. It was campy, but that's Halloween, baby. I'm cool with it. But I will say, after that music video, the momentum really kind of died off. But then recently, actually just last week as of recording this, we finally got the release date for Hurry Up Tomorrow, which is January 24th. If I got that wrong, I'm just going to insert the date here. Thank you. And I think that really kind of calmed a lot of EXO, because up to this point, it had been kind of infuriating being a part of this community, just because everyone was just so negative about everything. And a lot of it was stemmed just from what we didn't have as opposed to what we've gotten so far. That's fine by me, be whatever kind of fan you want to be, but I just found it really disheartening. You know, EXO has always been such a chill place, with a bunch of chill people, a bunch of cool people to talk about, and you know, it seems like it's gotten very chart obsessed lately. But anyways, I digest. So that's where we are today. I do want to kind of compare it to some of the past rollouts we've gotten in this After Hours trilogy so far. So starting off with After Hours, of course, we got our very first glimpse of The Weeknd doing his thing. And then around November, we got Heartless. We got the music video shortly after, and again, November. And then shortly afterwards, we got Blinding Lights, which was just such a different sound, very much drenched in that 80s synth sound. You know, it was so different compared to what we had just gotten with Heartless, harkening back very much to Beauty Behind the Madness. I think of how we got The Hills, something very familiar, and then we got Can't Feel My Face. Both very different sounds, but both being what we would come to know as the Weeknd sound. And throughout the rest of 2019 into 2020, he would sprinkle a couple of different TV performances, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel Live. And then we got this sick teaser announcement for the album title around early January of 2020. Fast forward a couple music videos, an amazing appearance on Saturday Night Live later. Make dinner like lovers do. I pour her wine and I'm sleeping on the couch. You know, March 19th, I believe, we then got the album. And if you're doing the math, November, that's about 4 months-ish, very well paced. And I think that's why everyone loves the After Hours era. And then of course, once the album dropped, we got banger music video after banger music video, Vivo live performances. And I think definitely an added aspect to just the whole feeling of After Hours was COVID and the pandemic. You know, obviously terrible time for everybody, but it added to the grandiosity of the album, which was that everything around us was terrible, and we could find comfort in this album that spoke such vulnerable lyrics and felt like someone reaching the depths of despair, because that's what the whole world was feeling, you know? Then you fast forward to Dawn FM, which was such a completely different type of rollout, you know, and I think it suits that specific era. I don't think that you could do the After Hours rollout for Dawn FM. I think it needed to kind of roll in straight into Dawn FM, because spoiler alert for an album that came out 4 years ago, you know, The Weeknd dies in Until I Bleed Out. That obviously leaves the question of, well, then what happens next? Coming straight out of death into this afterlife concept that The Weeknd put forth in Dawn FM, I think it fit so perfectly to just be like, okay, 2022, early 2022, I just got finished dominating 2019, 2020, 2021 with a bunch of new performances. And he would mention throughout a couple of award show appearances, you know, the dawn is coming, the dawn is coming. Well, the dawn has arrived, and I think like early January, like first week of January, he dropped the album. And I remember how he debuted the album was with this live listening party experience with him as Old Man Abel, you know, kind of performing the record, being like the DJ in this place for sinners, which I think is what the atmosphere of the whole album is. And so it was really cool to get that world building, getting that kind of visualization for the universe that Abel was trying to create. And then of course he took it a step further with the Dawn FM experience, which came out a little bit after that. So yeah, Dawn FM, if y'all know me, y'all know I'm a Dawn FM devotee. I will swear by that album being probably the Weeknd's best work. I go back and forth between Dawn FM and Kissland all the time, but to me, that album and that rollout, that whole era, did wonders in terms of character progression for what that character represents. You know, is that he's finally starting to kind of get himself out of this haziness that he's been stuck in throughout Trilogy, coming all the way through After Hours. You know, and Dawn FM was really the first album where you got to see a glimpse of hope. You know, and I think that's so powerful. So yeah, now that we've gone through all three eras, I want to kind of have a discussion about some of the critiques I've seen, which ones I agree with, which ones I don't agree with. So yeah, starting off, it definitely has been a stop and go rollout. I can definitely agree with that. It's been very much like we get the vignettes and then we kind of wait a little bit. We get the Hurry Up Tomorrow, Sao Paulo performance, the Dancing in the Flames music video, and we got to wait a little bit. And then we got Timeless, Sao Paulo, kind of waited a little bit. And then now we got the album release date. And now we can, you know, start to look forward a little bit, right? But I can definitely acknowledge it's left a lot to be desired. A critique I don't agree with is that Dancing in the Flames was a bad lead single or a bad single period. I think it was really good, and a really catchy song, again, really endearing, really gets you on the Weeknd side. I think XO has been going through this weird phase of just complaining about everything, and that's kind of shrouded, I feel like, this rollout, and I don't really understand where that's coming from. Like, I feel like it's coming from a place of people having such high expectations for what they want that they are not realizing what they're getting and not appreciating it, and then they're gonna look back and be like, you know, like revisionist history stuff. Me personally, yes, I have my critiques, but I also feel like there's been a lot of good throughout this whole rollout, you know? Do I feel like the music videos following Dancing in the Flames kind of continued the momentum of, you know, that music video and how it kind of carried the After Hours trilogy story so far? No. Timeless felt like, again, a side quest. Sao Paulo was this just like weird moment, you know, that I loved seeing everyone react to. But then we got the Open Hearts music video, which was something that I didn't really mention before, partly because I am poor and I don't have an Apple Pro Vision and I just haven't made it out to an Apple store. So I just watched this shitty little Reddit recording of the music video, which even that looked absolutely amazing. Yeah, I think there's a lot of hope for what the rest of this era will look like. We obviously have the film that's, you know, supposed to tie in and have the same title and have some sort of role in culminating the Weeknd and his story, right? So, you know, I think there's so much to look forward to, but the central question of this video is this the Weeknd's worst rollout? At least in this After Hours trilogy. Man, I'm gonna have to say, yeah. I mean, again, I hate hyperbole sentences. And of course, this is an unfinished product. We're practically, you know, at the kind of 90% of this rollout, at least the pre-album rollout. You know, comparing it to the other three, like the momentum just hasn't gone up and up and up. It's kind of been start, stop. There's been lulls. I think one of the best rollouts of this year has been Tyler, the Creator's Chromacopia. Well, that was tough to get out. Tyler, the Creator's Chromacopia. And I think the reason it was so successful was because there was no kind of BS or no extra sauce put onto it. It was just, check out this album teaser. Guess what? You're going to get the album in 2 weeks. Enjoy. Have a blast. We got little snippets, little music videos, little bits here and there. But sure enough, on that date, we got the album. And I think that's probably a good... Hold up. There's someone needing medical assistance. Probably the Weeknd from his Dancing in the Flames music video. I forgot what I was even talking about. Wow, I totally just lost my train of thought. But I say all that to say, this probably is true that this is the Weeknd's worst rollout, at least so far. But that's not to say that this era isn't capable of being saved. You know, again, we have a whole film to come out. The music videos have looked cinematic as hell so far, even though I personally didn't love the look of the Dancing in the Flames music video and that whole Apple iPhone 16 type deal. Like, it just felt super clear. It felt like, you know, when you go to a Costco or something, you look at the TV and it has no motion blur. It looks like a documentary a little bit, and it kind of breaks the immersion. That's kind of how I feel about that music video, but I digest. Hurry Up Tomorrow, I can definitely say this rollout has made me want tomorrow to hurry the fuck up. Some of you guys' complaints are valid. Some of them I think are just overreactions, but all in all, those are my thoughts on the Hurry Up Tomorrow rollout. I just wanted to check in, you know, get a temperature check and just see, like, how are y'all feeling? How do you guys like this rollout so far? Are you guys enjoying it? Are you guys on the other end of the spectrum? What have been your favorite bits about it? How do you feel about Dancing in the Flames? I feel like people don't give that song its just due just because it's bright and upbeat. You know, it's similar to how I feel about comedies coming across as feeling lower quality just because they're brighter, they're meant to make you laugh, they're not as dramatic per se, but I still find a lot of craft in comedies, in upbeat songs. I think there's a lot of nuance there. Anyways, it's almost midnight. I think I'm ready to call it a night. So this has been P.O. You've been amazing, and this is my place. Hope you like it, and y'all are welcome back anytime. Until that next time, I hope y'all take care. Bye.